In the wide realm of canceled transit initiatives in the US, many projects and agencies come to mind. However, one that seldom gets attention, if ever, is the once proposed plan for a 14-mile full LRT line that would operate in Kansas City into select suburban areas. Unfortunately, this proposal was turned down by the citizens of Kansas City back in 2008, a mere few years before residents would finally approve a rail project that would become the Kansas City streetcar. The modern streetcar now runs through much of the proposed route of the originally conceived light rail, but regardless, it would be fascinating still to discover what the entire system would appear today if it were built out by now, unblemished by another system, a full 17 years later. I am Urbanist Frank, and that is precisely what we will be looking at today, the exact route and operations. Welcome to Alternate Transit History. Before we get into the meat of this topic, I would first like to address the elephant in the room. But Frank, isn't the current KC streetcar an LRT? To which I would say, it depends. You see, when it comes to modern systems that classify themselves as either streetcars or LRTs, they usually share a good amount of similarities, which thus makes differentiating these two entities a rather frivolous endeavor, one being rolling stock. However, it ultimately comes down to operational differences. A system that calls itself a streetcar, per the APTA, serves mainly as an urban circulator, while a more orthodox LRT would serve regional connections from suburb to city or suburb to suburb, mimicking the interurban they replaced. These differences apply to these two systems likewise, as the newer serves only the core and runs at grade, though in its own lane most of the time, whilst the other served a much larger area. In order to observe how this plan came to be, and ultimately failed, we will have to go back to when all American cities fell for the devil's contract, the 1950s. Prior to its decline and preceding shutdown, Kansas City had one of the largest streetcar networks in the country, along with an expanse of interurbans connecting to the suburbs. However, like almost every American city at the time, this changed with the prioritization of car-centric planning, which led to the bulldozing of countless neighborhoods near downtown, ruining the lives of many innocent souls, the majority of which being working class. This all culminated in the shutdown, as mentioned earlier, of the original Kansas City streetcar in 1959. In the decades following, Kansas City would do little in terms of transit initiatives to combat rapid suburban population growth. This would all change in the early 2000s, when a number of initiatives led by the infamous transit advocate Clay Chastain slowly got the ball rolling on several light rail proposals. But every single time they went to ballot, they got voted down, the last vote taking place in 2014, which Chastain claims is the result of sabotaging by City Hall. But for the sake of this video, we will exclusively be looking at the 2008 plan, as that is what we have the most information of as of present. Now that we have the background out of the way, we shall observe how the system should have looked if it were built. The system would have started near the intersection of Meyer Boulevard and Prospect Avenue, operating as a park and ride next to the Research Medical Hospital, with trains heading north to 55th Street and eventually entering in the middle of Prospect for a short distance. Trains would then cross onto Swope Parkway for the Prospect station, which also acts as a sort of park and ride next to transit-oriented development. After the next station, Woodland, it would cross Bush Creek onto Emmanuel Cleaver III Boulevard, near the Paseo, and stop at Troost, and thereupon after, turn into Main at the Country Club Plaza. From this point onward, the LRT, for the most part, parallels the route of the current, smaller, and semi-light rail Kansas City streetcar, with a few caveats. One notable difference, however, would be that the tracks would branch off to Main and Grand both ways, between 30th and 27th Streets. The main section, further, would split into north and south on the Main and Walnut respectively, and would have another branch off onto Wyandotte Street. As for the Grand Line, it has its own offshoot onto McGee Avenue. These lines would all converge near River Market, which, at the time of recording, is the current northern terminus of the streetcar. The system would head north, crossing the Missouri River into North Kansas City, having a stop at 27th Avenue and continuing north on Burlington Avenue. After subsequent stops at 18th and 29th Avenues, it would head north on Northwest Traffic Way, finally terminating at Vivian Road. Now that we have the route underway, let's have a look at what this would actually contribute to the city compared to the modern streetcar. The first, and most obvious, is the scale. 14 miles of LRT compared to 5.7 miles of an LRT operating as a streetcar. The reach would be more akin to something that would ease congestion heading towards the city center, not simply inside it. Another contribution would be, as with most transit running through city cores, the massive amounts of TOD planned as a result. As seen in the pitch video, much TOD was already planned, but with more to come because of the impact a project can have on natural revitalization. Having multiple branches, it had more of an opportunity to develop a broader range of downtown instead of what was nearby. As shown, this would have been an extremely beneficial addition to a fascinating corridor. In the history of Kansas City, no other transit project this ambitious came so close to reality. This project, born out of an ambitious and courageous mind concerned with the well-being of Kansas City and its residences. Not much unlike other statesmen such as Socrates, was overlooked and ended up out of reach. The route presented a promising path of opportunity, both literally and figuratively, in more greatly connecting the populace. This system, if built, could have been a vital asset to the metro as a larger whole, and not just the core. And the streetcar, although showing a fraction of what the system could have been, still serves strong in its own ways of renewal. Overall, this attempt got the ball rolling on many projects following, giving advocates a greater understanding of how, or not how, to build a connected Kansas City. What did y'all think? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Also, watch the other submissions and support other fellow young creators. Finally, please sub to me and Classy Whale, who made this content possible. Thanks, everybody.